Hey everybody, it's Big E. Welcome to Big E's YouTube channel. Yep, we got the Ram 1500 here again. This time we're doing the driver's side. And some people are like, hey, you did a video already on this. You know, why are you doing one on the driver's side? Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to turn the camera here. I don't know if you can see what we got going on here. You have to excuse, my camera's going to be probably moving all over the place. We're outside, it's windy, it got cold as balls since yesterday. So anyway, you can see our repair panel here. Here's the issue I'm talking about that I want to show you guys today. Let me bring you down here a little bit so you can see. Plus it might steady the camera. So you have your gas cap, okay. If I leave that on, you can see that actually goes past where the body folds in for your gas cap. So if you went ahead and you cut this out, you're gonna have an issue when it comes time to blend in the body work, to do the body work, mix your plastic and stuff. So I have it clipped, I have this clamped with a welding clamp, vice grip, in place. I have it pretty much positioned where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do here is I used a paint marker and I put this line here. So I'm going to cut the panel, since there's no rust on the truck in this area, I'm going to cut the panel back, okay? So that way my seam now is going to get moved over here, and I'm going to have maybe that much of area that I can do my body work and blend everything. So that gives me more of an area to, because I don't want to bring it out too much further. I mean, I guess I could bring it out to here yet, and maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe we'll move it back a little more yet to give that area for us to blend into body work when that time comes. But this is why every job needs to be thought through and planned, because this is something I screwed up when I did the train wreck truck. I went ahead and did it that way, and I didn't realize till later that I had screwed up. So this is something you learn through experience, things you screw up, that when you have it later, you can make adjustments. So every job, think it through. What are you going to run into in the future of doing a big job like this? So here's one of the things is your gas cap. You're going to run into an issue with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my index mark, and then once I do that, I'm going to unclamp this. I am going to drop this back. I'm going to cut the panel, and then we're going to go ahead and reclamp everything, and then we're going to trace the panel out. And then when we trace it, we're going to see where we're at. We're going to make for the area to be for the crimping. We got to figure for that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. When I come back, I should have this cut and clamp back in place. Alright guys, so we went ahead, we made our cut here on the panel, and then we also, for whatever reason, this panel wasn't quite shaped with the contours. It's away here, I have it clamped here, so I added a clamp here, okay, to get that right. I also put a clamp here to hold that, okay, but you can see it pulled away here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace this out and then push against here as I'm tracing it, okay? And we're going to have to address that when we go ahead and we fasten this onto the panel. So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead. You can take anything described. If you have any kind of a hook like this, you can use the edge of a piece of steel, anything that'll make a mark to scratch into that paint. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to basically trace this out. Okay, so now what we can do with that traced out, we can go ahead and remove our clamps. Remove our panel. Now, as you can, I'm going to bring the camera here, you can see our line here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to measure in. Alright, I should, maybe down would be a better explanation, but anyway, you're going to come in about, I'm going to make it a 1/4 inch that we're going to come in, and we're going to go ahead, we're going to run that crimp around there, and we see if we get a better fit this time around. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to measure that up and cut it out. Alright, and then I'll be back. Alright guys, Big E, we're back. So, put my glasses off here. So, as you can see, we got our panel cut out. We got our overlap here. We got it all, except for that, we got it all grind all the burrs off. We got our rust here somewhat scuffed up. We're going to go ahead and treat that. Before we do that, what we're going to do, sorry, there's dust all over the camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start crimping the edge. I'm going to demonstrate that a little bit with the, like I said, you might be one of those lucky people who can go to Harbor Freight and just get an air one, which would be probably a lot quicker and a lot less time consuming and easier on your hands, but I just haven't justified spending that yet, so I have my crimper here. So we're going to go ahead. Let me see if I can get this set up to show you guys. So I'm going to try and show you here, if you can see how the crimper is. There's the thick part that's in towards the inside of the vice grip. We're going to go ahead and just, I would need both hands, sorry. Let me do a couple, and I'll try and show. I don't think it needs to be quite that impossible, so we're going to back that off a little bit. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it with the camera, but there's, I don't know if you see it there, but there's an actual, you can see, I don't know if you can see the paint that's cracked. That's where the bend is, and it's, I mean, I'm not getting it perfectly smooth as far as lined up, but it's crimped there. I don't know if you can see that there. So basically what you want to do, guys, is, and you see this raised part here, okay, and then it I'm trying to hold this, Jesus, there's this flat part and this raised part, okay, that raised part here where my finger is, that's what's going to make that divot, for lack of a better term. You want this part here, this raised part, if possible, to extend past your panel line. Does that make sense? Here's your panel. That's where the panel is going to end. You want your crimp to extend a little bit past that. Okay, if you can do, if that's a possibility and you achieve that, that means you cut it out with the correct margin of error, for lack of a better term, so that when you're done crimping and you put the panel on, it should lay in there nice and you should need minimal body work. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna crimp this whole thing, and when I come back and then I'm gonna treat the rust like I did with the other one. We'll do that, and then we're gonna do panel fitment when I get back. Alright guys, Big E, I'm back. So we got this panel, it's we got it all. Don't you hate that when you forget the word you're going to use? Crimped. That's it, crimped. So we have a nice crimp all the way around the whole perimeter of this. We have our index mark here, which will tell us where the panel is. But first, before we go ahead and start buttoning this up, we got to take care of the original problem, which is why it rotted out in the first place, was the rust. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we have our rust treatment, not high dollar, you can get it at your local auto parts store. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to liberally lay in this stuff. Where there's rust, whether you cleaned it off or not with your grinder, or you left it there, it doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to let that set up. Spray as much as you can. Now, while we're laying that set up, I'm going to paint it. And I said it on when I did the other repair panel, I'll say it again. Undercoating, everybody thinks at this point we're going to go ahead and we're going to lay down an insane amount of undercoat to make sure this doesn't rust. The things I've noticed in the time that I'm doing this is that undercoating actually defeats the purpose. It actually attracts moisture, which I didn't know that until I messed around with it myself. And other people have told me that they've had issues when they undercoat, that it actually attracts the moisture, which is what you're trying to prevent, because moisture, when it gets to metal, creates rust. So what I've been doing is I do the rust treatment, and you can use black paint. I have this laying around. I'm never going to use this for anything. Once we get this pedal on, you're never going to see this anyway, but it does provide a barrier. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this wacky red. As much as I hate this color, I never paint really anything this color, but it's going under here, and it's going to create a barrier to prevent against rust. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to spray this up, and we're going to go ahead, when I come back, we're going to trial fit this panel. Alright everybody, Big E, I'm back. So we got this painted, that ugly red color, but it's going to provide a barrier. So now our next step is to go ahead and let's put our panel up in place. We'll do a trial fit. You might have to use your hammer to get a couple things where it belongs. Now we did have to grind a little bit. Once you have it in place, you then go ahead and clamp it into position. Once you get your clamp to work, cooperate. Okay, so now we have that in place. Now let's look around. We have a real nice you might have to still touch up a few places, like here it's sagging down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move that up. And I'm going to take another clamp. And as usual, you have to play with this a little bit. To make sure we have enough overlap. And we still don't. So we're going to tighten our clamp a little more. We don't want to get too nuts. That's why you leave that line there, so you can see about where you're at. And then you get it to your line, clamp it up into place. Okay? So now we have it in place. We're going to double check here. That looks pretty decent. We're going to put another clamp there for now. Okay, so it looks like we're on that line. I'm going to double check. And then what we're going to go ahead and do, get yourself a center punch. I like using a spring loaded. And since this is our problem corner, I like to use, this is something I learned to weld. I'll do that later. But for right now, I'm going to put some pot rivet in, because what it actually does is the pot rivet will grab your old panel, the new panel, and actually suck them together so they're tight. And that's what you want. You want that nice tight metal. Now, what we'll do is take our pot rivet gun, now the problem is my drill bit isn't quite the right size. So I have to ream it out a little bit. You don't want it too loose, but then on the same token, you don't want it too tight like this, but you're almost at that point of no return. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, but you get the gist of it. You want to have, I'm going to put a pot rivet at the corners. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put 5 pot rivets in here. So when I come back, I'm going to have the 5 pot rivets in, and we'll see how tight that fits. Alright guys, Big E, so I'm back. Whoa, what happened to my head? So we got our panel pot riveted on. I think this is where I'm going to stop today because it's cold, it's overcast, and it's too cold to do any body work or any kind of painting today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how it is. All this is tight against here, which is what you want. Okay. And you look too. We have our. I'm trying to see if you can see the distortion. Okay, so where our crimp is past there, which is what you want, because now that means this is at the same level as your panel, because this is crimped. So now all you'd have to do is clean this up with about a 220 grit sandpaper, okay, and you can start doing your body filler. Just fill in that there, and it should smooth in real nicely for you. And we're going to do a video on that. Not today, but we're going to do a video where we come back. We're going to go ahead and sand it down. We're going to get some body filler in there. We're going to make it real nice. So as you can see, we're lined up. Everything's nice and tight. I might go back, I might tack weld here and there, but that's about it. So that's it for panel installation. You could actually, just with this pop riveted, you could actually get this ready for paint, and that would be fine. But I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of welds in there, but that's for another day. So I hope you learned something. I hope it helps you out. If you got a Ram 1500 that's rotten out, you can get the repair panels and put them on yourself. It's really not that hard to do. A little bit of common sense, you'll be great. So like and subscribe. Watch out for each other. Take care of each other. We'll see you right here next time on Big E's.